get ready for a quick quest guide for the A Kingdom Divided quest, in which the main rewards for completing are the Book of the Dead and access to more Arceuus spells, including Thralls. You'll also gain the ability to fight Yama, the ability to set the Kourend castle as your respawn point, 2 10,000 experience lamps that can be used in any skill over level 40, and 2 quest points. You'll need to have completed the Depths of Despair, the Queen of Thieves, the Ascent of Arceuus, the Forsaken Tower, and the Tale of the Righteous quest before taking on this one. Then in terms of skill requirements, you'll need 54 agility, 52 thieving, 52 woodcutting, 50 herblore, 42 mining, 38 crafting, and 35 magic. While not required, I'd very highly suggest having 43 prayer before taking on this quest for access to protection prayers. And know that 70 combat is officially recommended for this quest, which will see you need to defeat multiple foes between level 91 and 239. Having around 60 ranged and base 50 melee stats will be enough to get you through pretty comfortably. When it comes to items, we'll firstly go through everything before looking at our starting setup. For items, you'll need any axe that you can use, a 3 or 4 dose defense potion, 1 molten glass, as well as either some volcanic sulphur, or instead of volcanic sulphur, which is untradeable, you can bring along a pickaxe as well as a face mask or slayer helmet to obtain it during the quest. Additionally, you'll need a dark essence block, or instead of this untradeable item, you can bring along a pickaxe to also obtain it during the quest. On top of this, you'll need 1 chaos rune, 4 fire runes, and 3 air runes in order to cast the firebolt spell. And because you need to cast this, you'll also need to be on the standard spellbook for this quest. For recommended items, you'll want armor and weapons to defeat multiple enemies. I'd suggest a ranged armor setup with a quick ranged weapon such as a magic shortbow, as well as your best melee weapon that you can switch into. This is because the hardest boss to fight this quest, called Xamphur, is weakest to ranged. However, you'll also need to defeat a Judge of Yama who can only be damaged with melee. Also note that the Judge is a demon, so if you have a demon bane weapon like Emberlight or Arclight, then that's ideal, but by no means necessary. I'm simply using a dragon mace, which definitely does the job. Also, don't forget a few hundred ammo to go along with your ranged weapon. And a side note, if your range level is really low, then you can take on all the bosses with melee. However, Xamphur will be a much harder fight. For food, I'd suggest having around 30 pieces of high healing food. Then looking at potions, I'd suggest having a ranging potion, a combat or super combat potion, and around 6 prayer potions to help with all of the combat involved during the quest. You'll also want 1 anti-poison or super anti-poison potion, and additionally around 6 stamina potions to help with the running around. Now let's talk teleports. Most importantly, you'll want your Kourend memoirs with at least 20 or so charges on it, as well as a charged games necklace, a charged ring of dueling, 3 battlefront teleports, 3 Arceuus library teleports, and either 3 Kourend castle teleports or a charged Xeric's talisman. While I'll be using Kourend castle teleports, a Xeric's talisman is preferred, as it'll provide you with some additional teleport options that will speed up some of the travelling you need to do during this quest. On top of this, if you've completed a Fairy Tale Part 2, then bringing along your drum and staff as well as 1 teleport to any fairy ring, for example a South Graveyard teleport, will also speed things up slightly. Note that the use of fairy rings is highly optional though. Now that we've gone through all the needed items, let's take a look at our starting setup. For this, you'll want to be wearing all your armor, and have both your ranged weapon and even more importantly your melee weapon on you. Also, don't forget ammo to match your ranged weapon. Then bring along your woodcutting axe and additionally 1 chaos rune, 4 fire runes, and 3 air runes in order to cast the firebolt spell. For potions, you'll want with you your ranging potion, your combat or super combat potion, 2 prayer potions, your anti-poison or super anti-poison potion, and 2 stamina potions. For teleports, have with you your Kourend memoirs, as well as your charged games necklace, a charged ring of dueling, 3 battlefront teleports, 3 Arceuus library teleports, and either 3 Kourend castle teleports or a charged Xeric's talisman. And note that these Kourend castle teleports include 1 for getting to the quest start. Most notably, your drum and staff and teleport to any fairy ring can remain banked at this stage. Then bring along 8 to 10 pieces of high healing food, Whatever you can fit into your inventory really, while also leaving one empty inventory space free at the quest start. Now you can begin this quest at Martin Holt's wooden platform just east of Kourend Castle, which is easily reached by using either a Kourend Castle teleport or a Xeric's Heart teleport on your Xeric's talisman and then running a little east. To start, talk to Martin Holt and go through the chat, whereby you learn of a dodgy council before then selecting yes to officially begin the A Kingdom Divided quest, and then continue through the rest of the chat where you agree to investigate a dodgy councillor's escape. Following this, run west a short ways and head into Kourend Castle, and then locate Commander Fulor within the large entry room. Talk to the commander and go through the dialogue, where she discredits Martin and tells you about the good that the council has done before agreeing to let you help recapture the escaped councillor Hughes. When dialogue options appear, select Let's Get Going to start a cutscene where the commander is forced to operate under a dude called Thomas while solving the case. When the cutscene ends, continue through the rest of the chat with the commander, and then head inside the house directly north and climb up the staircase west. Then run into the bedroom east and search the drawers along the western wall just north of the door. This will see you obtain a receipt that you'll then want to select to inspect. Following this, choose to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the Jewelry of Jubilation option to teleport to Lovakenge, and then run east before opening the door and heading into the pub. Inside, look for a dwarf named Fuggy and talk to him, and then begin by asking, had any councillors stay here recently? And continue through the chat, with an earthquake happening halfway through, before the chat continues that you'll want to go through. When it finishes, select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the Fisher's Flute option to teleport to Port Piscarilius. After arriving, run south for a while past the general store and onto the docks, before then continuing south and eventually turning east. Nearby to the first ship will be cabin boy Herbert. Now I suggest popping on your melee weapon and watching on ahead, as after this next chat the first fight will begin against the Judge of Yama. When you're ready, talk to cabin boy Herbert and after some chatter say, I'm looking for a councillor, and then continue through the chat. You'll then get a cutscene whereby the councillor shows up and summons a disciple of Yama who in turn kills her and then challenges you, prompting the boss fight. For this fight, take a sip of your combat potion and then pray protect from melee plus melee boosting prayers. The judge here will push you away and you'll need to make your way through the gaps in the waves of fire to reach him so that you can deal damage with melee. Go slow and prioritize positioning in the gaps in the firewall to not get hit as you make your way forward, as getting hit will see you take around 20 damage plus some residual burn damage. Upon reaching Yama, simply hit him with melee while praying protect from melee until he casts you back away, and then the loop starts over whereby you'll need to make your way through the gaps in the firewalls to reach him all over again. Continue doing this, prioritizing safety over speed as you make your way back to Yama. And before too long you should manage to defeat this boss. Once defeated, you'll be taken to Kourend Castle. Go through the cutscene whereby a councillor asks you to convince Martin Holt to stop the protests before the commander sneakily asks you to meet her outside the castle. Following the cutscene, straighten up your camera if needed so that you're facing north, and then run a tad southwest, exiting the castle through the small side door. Outside, you'll find the commander, talk to her and go through the chat, where she questions the council's role in taking rule from the late king and his daughter. When the chat finishes, the screen will fade to black and she'll head back inside. Now let's return to Martin, either by using a Kourend Castle teleport or a Xeric's Talisman teleport to Xeric's Heart and then running a tad east. Talk to Martin and continue through the chat where you look for a way to find the king's daughter Rose who was sent away, and you then learn that her diary should be somewhere in the Arceuus library archive. When the chat finishes, use your Arceuus library teleport before running south into the library, and then go a little southwest whereby you'll find Arceo. Select teleport on him to be taken to the archive. Once inside, locate Historia in red who has a pickpocket option and select to pickpocket her to obtain a bluish key. Then on the southeastern wall of the room you'll find a pink display case with a search option on it. Select to search it to obtain Rose's diary. Inspect the diary and continue through the text that pops up. Following this, either use a Kourend Castle teleport or a Xeric's Talisman teleport to Xeric's Heart and then run a little bit east back to Martin. Talk to Martin and continue through the dialogue whereby he finds a hidden note in the diary and hands it to you. Now read Rosa's note to find a riddle that you need to solve and then continue through the chat with Martin. When it ends, select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the Lunch by the Lancaliums option to teleport just west of Arceuus. From here, run west for a little while before going south across the bridge to the Fourthos Ruins whereby you'll find Martin. Talk to him and following a long chat about history and dodgy council things, select I'll get searching and finish off the chat. Now we need to solve a very easy puzzle that has a random answer or solution for everyone. Start by running to the southeastern turret and then search the stone pile inside. It should say R equals and then a number. For me it says 9, but it could be anything between 0 and 9. Write that number down. Now run a little northwest and then search the western stone pile. It should say O equals and then a number. For me it says 3, but it could be anything between 0 and 9. Write that number down next. Next search the stone pile just southeast. It should say S equals and then a number. For me it says 7, but it could be anything between 0 and 9. Write that number down. Finally, run a little northeast to the final stone pile and search it. It should say E equals and then a number. For me it says 9, but it could be anything between 0 and 9. Write that number down. You now have your 4-digit code, and note that my code that you're seeing on screen will highly likely be different to your own code. Now just west you'll find some vines. Select to chop these vines, and once chopped, choose to squeeze through them. Then memorize your unique code, and just north along the wall will be a panel. It might be tricky to see. Select to check this, and then input your unique 4-digit code and select enter to unlock it and obtain a note. Read this note to get another riddle, and then close it. Next, squeeze through the vine south and then talk to Martin just north. After some chatter say, alright, I'll see you soon, and finish off the chat. Following this, use your game's necklace to teleport to Wintertot. Now optionally, if you're low on food or prayer points, then you can pop into the nearby bank and resupply, with a small fight against a level 132 assassin coming up. Then from Wintertot run south and a little southeast. At the first fork in the road, take the path west. When you come across another fork, take the more northern path, and shortly after it another fork, go southwest, popping on protect from melee if needed as you continue southwest and further west. Head into the most western ruins building within the settlement, and inside of it you'll find Martin. Now make sure you're ready for a fight against a level 132 assassin and then talk to Martin. Halfway through the chat you'll be interrupted by the assassin's attack, and you'll then need to defeat it. For this, simply pray protect from melee, drink a combat boosting potion if you like, and attack with whatever combat style you're best in. Note that the assassin will occasionally throw in a ranged attack in addition to its melee ones. After the assassin's defeated, continue through the chat with Martin, and when dialogue options appear select I'll have a look around, before finishing off the chat. Next run a tad southwest, and just north of a snow-covered tree will be some ice chunks. Cast your firebolt spell on these ice chunks to melt them down a little, and afterwards select to search the ice chunks to obtain a cold key. Key obtained, go a tad north, and near Martin along the western wall will be another panel. Check the panel to obtain another note, which you'll want to read to get another riddle. Now close it and chat to Martin just north, and following the dialogue say, alright, good luck, and finish off the chat. When it ends, select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the Fisher's Flute option to teleport to Port Piscarilius. After arriving, run south for a while and then continue southwest for a while heading off the docks. You'll want to go to the bar nearby to the docks whereby you'll find Martin next to a table. Chat to Martin and go through the dialogue. And when chat options appear, just click off from the chat. Now just west of Martin will be a climbable pillar. Select to climb it to head up to the balcony above, and then just west inside along the northern wall is another panel. Select to check this to observe some text. Now very importantly, this text will have the 5 houses within Kourend listed at the bottom, but the order in which they're listed will be random for everyone. So for me it's Arceuus, then Port Piscarilius, followed by Arceuus, Shazian, and finally Lovakenge. But for you the order will likely be different. Screenshot this or write down the order that the houses are mentioned in within your unique text pop-up. Even just writing the first letter for each district works. Once that's done, head east to the balcony and select to climb the wall in the southeastern corner to return to the ground. Just east you'll notice 5 statues. Head to them and rotate your camera to face them, and you'll notice each has a letter on their plaque. H for Arceuus, S for Shazian, L for Lovakenge, A for Arceuus, and P for Port Piscarilius. You'll need to inspect these statues and then select Press it in the same order that they were listed on your unique panel text, which again is random for everyone. So while you'll very likely be pressing these in a different order, for me I press the Arceuus statue, followed by the Port Piscarilius statue, then the Arceuus statue, the Shazian statue, and finally the Lovakenge statue. Reminder that you'll very likely be pressing them in a different order. Once you've pressed them all in the correct order, you'll get some text pop up saying that you hear a click. Now head west and climb back up the pillar, before checking the now open panel northwest to get another note. Following this you'll get a cutscene whereby that shifty douchebag Thomas arrives and arrests Martin. When the cutscene ends, read your new note to get another riddle before closing it. And now let's bank to prepare for the main boss fight in the quest. For this, use your Ring of Dueling to teleport to the Ferox Enclave before running a little west and drinking from the pool of refreshment to restore your stats. And then use the bank chest just south. Here you can deposit your woodcutting axe and then replenish your prayer potion so that you have 2 to 3 of them, as well as your stamina potion so that you have 2 of them, and additionally withdraw extra food, aiming for between 8 and 12 pieces. Double check that you have your combat gear to fight Xamphur, who is weak to ranged, and additionally you'll want to have at least 1 empty inventory space. Once you've banked, use a battlefront teleport and then run mostly west and a tiny bit north until you reach a shack that you'll want to go into. Inside, search the bed to obtain a tatty note before reading and closing it. Afterwards, inspect the crates in the northwestern corner of the room to find a trapdoor and select Climb Through It. This will start a cutscene whereby you find Rose and a counselor. And then a second cutscene with the commander where she's shocked of the council's betrayal, before you then learn that a mage caused Rose's condition, which is kept stable by potions that the mage regularly supplies. After the cutscene ends, continue through the chat with the commander, clicking off when more chat options appear. Now climb up the ladder west and exit the shack before running south, heading to Mulch. Continue going south before crossing over the dark bridge into the more swampy landscape. Once there, be careful of the aggressive lizardmen and head east to the most eastern dungeon sign within the lizard settlement and select to climb down into the lizard dwelling. Also, side note, if you become poisoned, then take a sip of your anti-poison potion. Inside, run north and talk to Cart. Begin the chat by asking, "Do you think you could help me find a mage?" and continue through the chat where he asks for an egg. Following this, run west all the way through the cave until you reach a strange hole and then jump in the hole. Once you're above ground, go south and then southwest, crossing over the bridge and continuing west for a while. When the path splits, go south and cross another bridge to reach an island with eggs. Note that upon taking the needed egg, you'll be attacked by a lizard man, but this lizard man can be ignored. Select to search the southeastern eggs to obtain an egg in your inventory, and afterwards immediately run north and northeast, backtracking the way you just came to the large temple. From here, just like you did before, run east to the most eastern dungeon sign within the lizard settlement and select to climb down into the lizard dwelling, before going a little north back to Cart. Talk to Cart and say, "So, about the key to that door," and then continue through the chat to trade the egg for the key. Now head a tad south and a little west, and to your north will be a door. Select to open it and then select yes to go through it before going a tad north. But don't open the northern gate just yet, as opening this will lead to the boss fight against Xamphur. Xamphur has 450 hit points and attacks with magic, max hitting 18. and so you'll want to be praying Protect from Magic for the entire fight. Note that Xamphur will still deal chip damage through prayer, and that his attacks have a 10% chance to bind you in place for a short moment. When it comes to defenses, Xamphur uses Protect from Magic throughout the fight, and is thus completely immune to magic. While he has high melee defenses, his range defenses are very low, and so a range setup is ideal. Additionally, you'll need to be wary of the boss arena, which will have 18 glowing pools spread out around it. Stepping on these will buff Xamphur's basic attacks and his Phantom Hand special. Speaking of specials, Xamphur has 2 special attacks. The Phantom Hand special sees him summon 2 Phantom Hands. These only have 12 hit points each, but their hits have a high chance to drain significant prayer points over time, and they also must be killed before you'll be able to damage Xamphur again. Also, if you step on a glowing pool, then note that these will drain even more prayer points. The second special, Crushing Hands, sees ghostly hands rain down on you from above. Simply walk back and forth in a line around the room constantly while avoiding the glowing pools on the ground to deal with this special. Now I'd suggest watching on ahead for the example fight before continuing. When you're ready, ensure that your ranged weapon is equipped provided that you're using ranged, that you're set to walking, not running, and that your auto retaliate is off before you begin. Now open the gate north, which will start a cutscene whereby you overhear Xamphur talking to his master, before you're then teleported into the room and notice a man who looks like Veos teleport out. Afterwards, the fight will start. Immediately pop on Protect from Magic and a combat boosting prayer. Also drink your combat boosting potion, and if using range, then step away from Xamphur a tile so that there are no glowing pools if you were to walk up and down. Then simply attack the boss and be ready for his specials. When text appears above Xamphur's head, immediately start walking up and down in a line while avoiding the glowing pools. Provided he uses the Crushing Hand special like he did to me, this should see you avoid all of the hands and thus the damage. Just keep walking up and down until the special stops. If Xamphur instead summons 2 Phantom Hands, then stop walking and kill both of them as quickly as you can before then resuming attacking Xamphur. That is pretty much the fight. Keep Protect from Magic on, deal with the 2 specials, and avoid walking on the glowing pools. Then simply continue attacking Xamphur, and before long you should defeat him. Well, kind of. After you supposedly defeat Xamphur, he'll regenerate and take you out. And following a short cutscene, you'll come to in his lab alone. Now reorient your camera so that you're facing north if needed, and then search the table to your north. This opens up a note revealing Xamphur's plans and influence over the council. Close this, and now let's return to Rose. For this, use a Battlefront teleport and then run west and a little north back to the hut, entering into it and inspecting the northwestern crates to go into the basement. Now go through a rather heartbreaking cutscene with the commander, which leads into another cutscene whereby Rose is buried, and you then look to gather the leaders of the Kourend houses to overthrow the council. When the cutscene finishes, select to use an Arceuus library teleport before running west and a little south to the Tower of Magic. Enter into it and climb up the staircase, and then chat to Lord Troban Arceuus. Following the chat, he'll agree to meet you at the lookout. Next, select to reminisce on your Kourend memoirs before selecting the Fisher's Flute option to teleport to Port Piscarilius. After arriving, run a tad east and then open and climb down into the manhole. Once you're down, run a little south and then west across the 2 bridges to the underground camp. Select to go through the doorway into the most northwestern tent, and then speak to Lady Shauna Piscarilius inside. Go through the chat, after which she'll agree to meet you at the lookout. Following this, select to reminisce on your Kourend memoirs before selecting the History and Hearsay option to teleport to Shazian. From here, run northeast to the bank, and it's time for a small bank break. Here you'll want to withdraw a Volcanic Sulphur and a Dark Essence block, or alternatively a pickaxe and a face mask or Slayer helmet to obtain some Volcanic Sulphur, or just a pickaxe if you only need to obtain a Dark Essence block. You'll also want to withdraw your Molten Glass and your 3 or 4 dose defense potion. Also consider restocking your prayer potions and stamina potions if needed, bringing along 2 of each. And on top of this, I'd suggest having around 6 or so pieces of high healing food. If you have extra, consider depositing some. Then while optional, if you have access to fairy rings, then withdraw your Draman staff and 1 teleport to any fairy ring. such as a South Graveyard teleport. Finally, you'll want to have 2 empty inventory spaces before continuing, or just 1 if you already have Volcanic Sulphur. Once you've banked, exit the building and run north for a while and go into the Shazian encampment, and then head into the war tent west before climbing up the ladder inside it. Then talk to Lord Shiro Shazian and go through the chat with him, after which he'll agree to meet you at the lookout. Following this, it's time to head to the Hosidius mansion, ideally by using your Xeric's talisman to teleport to the Xeric's glade before running a little east into it. Alternatively, select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the Lunch by the Lancalium's option to teleport west of Hosidius. Then run a little south and east across the bridge into Hosidius before going a little further east and southeast into the Hosidius mansion. Inside, talk to Lord Kanda Hosidius and go through the chat with him, after which he'll agree to meet you at the lookout. Next, select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the Jewelry of Jubilation option to teleport to Lovakanj and then run west and head into the Lovakanj assembly. Inside, talk to Lady Volcana Lovakanj and go through the chat with her, after which she too will agree to meet you at the lookout. Now if you already have Volcanic Sulphur, then skip to the timestamp shown on screen. If you don't, then instead equip your face mask or Slayer helmet and exit the building. Then run northwest for a while and further north along the western side of the large lava pool, and eventually you'll reach the sulphur mine at northwestern Lovakanj. Note that you can use the Xeric's talisman teleport to the Inferno before running north and then northwest to cut down on some of the time if you have a Xeric's talisman. After arriving, again make sure that your face mask or Slayer helmet is on, and avoiding the smoky clouds, select to mine a Volcanic Sulphur. Once you have one, exit back out of the area. Now it's time to head to the Xeric's lookout. If you have a Xeric's talisman, then you can use a lookout teleport to travel directly there before skipping to the timestamp on screen. Without a Xeric's talisman, you'll want to select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the history and hearsay option to teleport to Shazian. From there, run southeast and further east or the rather long way through Shazian, before then changing direction slightly and going southeast to the lookout. Yup, it's a bit of a run. After arriving, enter into the lookout and chat to the commander on the ground floor. After some chatter, you'll enter a cutscene with the leaders of the houses where they mull over taking power from the council. When the cutscene ends, continue through the chat with the commander until dialogue options appear, and then click off from the chat. Following this, climb up the nearby staircase and then talk to Lord Shiro Shazian before going through the chat with him. After it ends, climb up the staircase once again and chat to Lady Volcana Lovakanj and continue through the chat with her. Next, climb up the staircase again and chat to Lady Shauna Piscarilius before going through the chat with her. After this, climb down the staircase 3 times to reach the ground floor and then chat to the commander. And when chat options appear, say, "I need some help with Lady Lovakanj," and continue through the chat. After it ends, climb down the ladder just south and then locate and talk to Lord Kanda Hosidius, continuing through the chat with him. Once it ends, climb up the ladder and then head a tad west to Lord Barbarian Arceuus. Make sure that you have 1 empty inventory space and then talk to him, going through the dialogue. When the chat finishes, make sure that you have a broken redirector in your inventory. Now we need to do a task for or investigate something for each of the heads of house. Following this, use a battlefront teleport and then run northwest, heading towards the mountain. After reaching the base, select to climb up the rocks to reach the middle platform, and then if you have 62 agility, climb up the next set of rocks to the top. Or alternatively, you can run around, following the path on screen to the top of the mountain, before heading to the elevator in the middle of it. Activate the elevator to climb down it, and then head a little north and speak to any of the 3 big blue dudes. Now continue through the rather long chat with all 3 of them, which will see them take your broken redirector. Then when more chat options appear, click off from the chat. Next, use your Volcanic Sulphur on your defense potion to create a Sulphur potion. Once made, speak with any of the big blue dudes once again and go through the chat whereby they enchant the potion and turn it into a shielding potion. Shielding potion in hand, use your games necklace to teleport to the Wintertot camp. Then run north and use your shielding potion on the doors of Din to reinforce them, before going through the dialogue. Following this, run south for a short ways and then turn and go a little east to the minecart. After reaching it, select travel on Lassen and then choose to travel to the Kourend woodland. From here, run south into the barbarian camp, and then to the south of their house will be a ladder. Make sure you're ready to fight a level 91 Barbarian Warlord who only uses melee and climb down this. Instantly you'll chat to Phileas before the Warlord attacks you. Once again, he only uses melee, so just pray protect from melee and whack him with whatever you like until you defeat him. After you beat the Warlord, talk to Phileas Remore in the nearby cage and go through the chat with him. Once the chat finishes, let's continue. Now if you already have a Dark Essence block, then skip to the timestamp shown on screen. But if you need to make one, then we'll do this now. For this, use an Arceuus library teleport before running north for a bit and then changing direction and going a long ways east, whereby you'll eventually reach the Dark Altar. Upon reaching it, continue southeast and make your way to the dense runestones. With 69 agility, you can take the northern shortcut to save some time, but otherwise you'll need to run a longer ways around and take the eastern shortcut to the runestones. I'll have paths for both routes shown on screen. After reaching the dense runestones, pick up the chisel just above the northern one, and then select to mine or chip the runestone until you have a dense essence block. With this essence block in hand, retrace your steps back to the Dark Altar, so heading in a generally northwestern direction while using the shortcuts available to you. And again, I'll have the routes on screen now. After reaching the Dark Altar, use your dense essence block on it to turn it into a dark essence block. Dark Essence block obtained, choose to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs and select a dark disposition to teleport to Arceuus. Then run north for a little while and enter into the turret just southwest of the altar symbol on the minimap, before climbing up the stairs in it. Once inside, run east for a while and then a little north before climbing up another staircase. And once you're in the chapel, locate and talk to Mori. Continue through the chat whereby you give Mori a molten glass and a dark essence block and receive a dark nullifier in return. Following this, select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the history and hearsay option to teleport to Shazian. Now run a little south and then west through the gates, before going a tad north to the prison with the dungeon sign. After arriving, climb down the staircase and then head to the room south whereby you'll find Martin in a prison cell. Talk to Martin and go through the chat with the guard and then him, whereby he tells you to meet his dwarf informer. When the chat finishes, once again select to reminisce on your Kourend's memoirs before selecting the history and hearsay option to teleport to Shazian. Next, run southeast until you're just south of the church, and now make sure that you're ready for another fight with an assassin before speaking to Jorah, who you'll find hanging out here. Begin the chat by saying, "Evil only triumphs when the good do nothing," and while he's giving you the dirt on the Dwarven Councillor, you'll be interrupted by an assassination attempt. Pop on Protect from melee and defeat the assassin, who mostly attacks with melee, though note that they will also use some ranged attacks as well. After you defeat the assassin, continue through the chat with Jorah to obtain a declaration. Declaration obtained, we now need to travel to the Chasm of Fire. You can run here from where you currently are, heading west out of Shazian, and then running a rather long ways north, following the path on screen to the chasm. Alternatively, if you've completed a Fairy Tale Part 2, then you can teleport to any fairy ring, for example by using a South Graveyard teleport and running a little northeast, before equipping your drum and staff and using the ring to teleport to the DJR Fairy Ring code, and then simply run a tad northwest to the chasm. After arriving, select to enter the chasm, which will see you go through a weird chat before waking up in the forest, thinking that everything went well and seemingly with no idea of what actually just happened. It's now time to head to the Hosidius Binary Barrels. With access to fairy rings, you can run north back to the Chasm of Fire Fairy Ring, and then take the AKR Fairy Ring code to the Binary before running a tad west to the Barrels. You can then skip to the timestamp shown on screen. Alternatively, if you have a Xeric's Talisman, then you can use it to teleport to Xeric's Glade before running southeast, Or another option is to reminisce on your Courette's memoirs before selecting the Lunch by the Lancaliums option and running a longer way southeast, and I'll pop up travel paths for both of these options on screen now. After reaching the wine barrel, select to inspect the eastern wine barrel and then choose Climb Through It to enter a secret room. Once you're inside, picklock the chest along the northern wall until you succeed, which will see you obtain a Shazian journal. Now it's time to return to Xeric's lookout. If you have a Xeric's talisman, then you can use a lookout teleport to travel directly there before skipping to the timestamp shown on screen. Without a Xeric's talisman, you'll want to select to reminisce on your Courette's memoirs before selecting the history and hearsay option to teleport to Shazian. And from here run southeast and further east, or the rather long way through Shazian, before then changing direction slightly and going southeast to the lookout. Yup, once again it's a bit of a run. After arriving, firstly chat to Lord Troban Arceuus outside and go through the dialogue with him, and having completed his task he'll agree to sign the Royal Accord. Next head east and then climb down the ladder, and once you're down in the basement, chat to Lord Hosidius and go through the dialogue with him. He too will agree to sign the Royal Accord. Now climb up the ladder to the ground floor, and then climb up the staircase before chatting to Lord Shazian. He'll take the journal and agree to sign the Royal Accord. Next, climb up the staircase and chat to Lady Lovakenge. Go through the chat whereby you reveal the declaration showing that Councillor Unka, who she trusted, wanted to remove her from power. She'll then also agree to sign the Royal Accord. Finally, climb up the staircase and talk to Lady Shauna, where you suffer amnesia and claim that the disciples of Yama have been dealt with. She too will agree to sign the accord. Now climb down the staircase 3 times to reach the ground floor, and once there, chat to Commander Fulor. After the chat, you'll get a short cutscene whereby you find the councillor you'd taken captive is now dead. This leads into another cutscene where after much discussion, the 5 heads of house agree to sign the Royal Accord, with Lord Hosidius taking the lead and becoming the new ruler. When the cutscene ends, continue through the chat with the commander, and after it finishes, climb back down the ladder to the basement. Here chat to Lord Hosidius, where he reveals he took charge to make sure that Lord Shazian didn't become ruler, as he doesn't believe him to be fitting. He also reveals that the journal you stole for Shazian was a fake that he himself planted. When the chat eventually ends, climb back up the ladder to the ground floor, and then talk to Commander Fulor. Continue through the chat before selecting Let's Do This. You'll now get a very long cutscene. It starts with civil unrest as the citizens look to storm the castle. The heads of house then step in, and after a chat with the councillors, they forcibly remove them from power. This then leads into a grand celebration, which includes you reuniting with Martin, chatting to other heads of house, and also talking to the commander. The Queen of Varlamore is at the event too, and you then enjoy a toast with the new king, Kanda Hosidius. But afterwards, while having a private chat with the king, he's assassinated, and the assassin then escapes. This then finishes the cutscenes and leads into a chat with the commander, whereby the new king is Arta Hosidius. There's also no conclusion on who murdered the previous king. Simply continue through this chat before BAM! Quest complete. You'll be awarded the Book of the Dead, which your Courette's memoirs will be transformed into, as well as access to more Arceuus spells, including Thralls. You'll also gain the ability to fight Yama, the ability to set the Kourend castle as your respawn point, 2 10,000 experience lamps which can be used in any skill over level 40, and 2 quest points. Thanks so much for watching, catch you in the next quest.